the Rangers Journal now.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Rangers Journal News Show on your Friday lunchtime. My name is Billy Rankin. I'm joined today by two special guests. Regular Bob, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad today, Billy. I think I've an interesting one today. I'm not sure what we've got on the agenda, but I'm sure we'll make it lively.
Well, I mean, it's been one of those weeks where not a lot's happened, but we've been pretty active in our chats and online. There's been a lot of Rangers news, but also joined by the Grand High Wizard, Scott Mackay. Are you okay, Scotty, mate?
I know, bad. How's yourself, Billy? All right.
It's still another day of sunshine, mate. I think that changes tomorrow, so we'll get this over with and I'll enjoy a day off and do that side of things. But look, let me stay with you, Scotty. As I say, it's been a busy week, and most of the talk has not been to do with actual football. It's been to do with the managerial side. We're still no further forward. I think we said last Friday that we expected something by this time, but nothing. But before we talk about the actual candidates and stuff that we will do, are you surprised there's still nothing announced?
I thought at the beginning of the week, I thought it might have something, or in news might have been leaked into the public who it was. I think that could still happen over the weekend. I think the stance the club are giving out is a very smart one in the sense that there's no preferred candidate yet, yada yada yada. I don't think that's the case, in my opinion. I don't know nothing. We're not in the know here at Rangers Journal. All I'm saying is I think they know who it is, and they're just keeping it under wraps just now until such times as the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, if that makes any sense, Billy.
I'm not claiming that we are in the know, but sometimes we do hear things, but we don't say anything because we're not trusted enough, or we don't trust ourselves enough to actually believe we're in the know with things. So no, other than what's out in the public kind of domain or in the usual kind of Twitter chats, we don't know too much. But Bob, on the same point, were you expecting something by this time last week to have been announced by now?
Yeah, I would have hoped for something, Billy. I think we were all of a similar mind in the group chat that last game was on the Sunday. I thought maybe Monday or Tuesday of this week that we maybe would have had something, whether it be the takeover, whether it be the manager. I know that we've debated it at a very long lengths in the chat to what we would prefer. If it would is it better getting the manager in first, so we can have that kind of grounding of from the playing side, because we kind of know that the takeover is still there in the background, or whether or not we just want everything done all in one, a big announcement. Here's the takeover, here's the new owners, here's a new manager that's going to go with this new team. So yeah, I would have hoped for more from the club this week. So, but again, but with anything, kind of what you touched on last week about having to go and do interviews, I'm sure they know. And again, we touched on it last week. It's pivotal that they get the right person in. So the fact that they're maybe taking, or in the public's view, taking longer than what we would want in order to announce something, maybe is a good thing in the long run.
Maybe so. And Scotty, the shortlist seems to have been in the last couple of days down to, I guess we've known for a wee while, Russell Martin, which is not my favourite candidate, Steven Gerrard and Davide Ancelotti. Are you surprised? I mean, we've done, and we've both been part of these interviews about managerial candidates. We've looked far and beyond, and lots of these candidates have, I feel, the right kind of calibre to take over at Rangers. But we're left with these three. I feel, well, Ancelotti's not a lazy and an obvious candidate, but Russell Martin and Steven Gerrard to me are the really kind of the first kind of grabbing at the easy fruits.
I know what you mean. In terms of the three candidates, Russell Martin can come in and go two ways. He can come in and his football is going to steamroll the league, and it's going to be great and it's going to be a good success, because I believe when I spoke to Martin Sanders for Southampton pod, he says he didn't have the players for that style of play in the Premier League, so that's fine. I believe that's reasonable enough if you're not getting the guy the tools to do the job. I'm not saying for 1 minute that I want Russell Martin as Rangers manager, but all I'm saying is that his football can go two ways. We can either steamroll teams, or it's going to be the way we would kind of expect it to be, the worst case scenario where it just doesn't work, because we've had it with Mark Warburton before. In terms of Davide Ancelotti, he's a very unknown quantity. We really don't know what we're going to get, or who's going to come in with him, or how safe is it in terms of, we know there's a lot of clubs interested in him and stuff like that. but we'll just need to wait and see on him. And Steven Gerrard, I don't know. We done a pod the other night on him, looking at his first stint in grave detail, and then last night we even ended up chatting about him again because with Gerrard, I think if you look at it across his 3 seasons, James McFadden actually says it on Open Goal yesterday that the first season worth of signings was just quantity over quality because it was such a high turnover, and then at transfer windows after that, the quality kind of started to creep through. For me, it's got to be Gerrard because he's the safest pair of hands, and I want to challenge for a league next season under his takeover. I don't want to wait 2-3 seasons. I want somebody that comes in that knows the level of the squad and that can buy the appropriate players that's going to allow us to challenge, because I really, really don't think Celtic's that hard a challenge when we've managed to beat them twice this season with the current team we've got. So it's just about beating the jobbers, as Cammy would say.
I think so. Well, look, Bob, let's go back a week, because when we finished this pod about 1 o'clock last week, I had to leave because I was interviewing, doing an interview on the spending side of things when the takeover comes in. Now, I was fully going into this interview expecting it to be a case of Rangers are going to have to sell Raskin, they're going to have to sell Igaman, they're going to have to sell whoever they can to be able to get round these financial fair play side of things. What I was not expecting, and I'm assuming you've seen the interview, but if you've not, what I've been told is that the financial penalties for ignoring the financial fair play really against the prize money you could win getting to the Champions League. It's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you just go and break these rules and spend big to get into the Champions League? What did you make of that side of things?
I thought it was interesting, Billy. I've not managed to see the pod, but fun enough, my dad sent me over. It was forwarded a message that had the kind of key points from it. So I've read through them, and again, it's probably just as you touched on. So it was very interesting that probably from the financial side of things, that they may, again, we don't know until everything, as Scotty said, the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, but the financial implications of these fines compared to the rewards that you're getting by getting into the Champions League, and on a consistent basis, it's kind of no risk, no reward sort of thing from the way I've taken it, or the way it came across to me on those points. To me, I think we find ourselves in a bit of a precarious position, easier for me to say, in Scotland, that it's really only 1 or 2 clubs that are going to challenge for Europe, in terms of the biggest competition on a yearly basis. So can I see the owners, the new prospective owners, taking that risk, maybe to try and get a more short-term win out of it? Long term, there may be more implications that we're not aware of, but my heart says if we're going to get, say, 30 million, if we were to make the Champions League and be quote unquote successful in it in its new format, a £5 million fine against a 30 million reward, 40 million reward is, to me, maybe too blunt in saying it's a no-brainer, but yeah, it's certainly an interesting one going ahead into the next season and beyond.
Scott, if I can ask you, just because I never asked you personally, obviously you put out, can anyone do this interview, and I was available, and I was glad to do it. But what drew you to asking Stefan, or what made you reach out to Stefan for the interview?
It was it's a big area of shade of grey, isn't it? The whole kind of what can't we do when the takeover happens. So I wanted to not only get us first on the interview process of what Rangers could potentially do when the takeover happens. I wanted to know if that makes any sense, because I think it's important need clarity on these sort of situations about what we can and can't do. Don't get me wrong, the club might have something completely different in mind compared to the interview, but it just gives you that wee bit of knowledge going into financial fair play or PSR, or I think it's got about 17 different names nowadays, but I just wanted to know and get everybody knowing a wee bit more about it, because it's an interesting topic in general, never mind that we're about to go through a takeover, and I thought Stefan was pretty spot on in everything he said, to be honest with you.
And There was a thread, not posted by any of us or myself. There was a thread in a somewhat popular Rangers forum discussing the interview, which I was reading through just to get other people's comments on it, because it wasn't a live interview, so I never got live feedback at the time. But there was actually a number of comments of people not wanting to go down the kind of same road, the kind of David Murray road, Scotty, as we might say it, and that's getting ourselves into financial trouble, which Stefan seemed to say that we would, but the benefits would outweigh that. What did you think of going down that? Did you feel it was a similar route that maybe David Murray had put us down before, and that obviously the repercussions of that was we had that financial problem, so we don't want to do that again?
I think football's changed these days. That the rules are in place now. That look at takeover in general. For example, right, football's learned for Craig White because you've got a due diligence process now in place. You can't just hand your football club over to anybody. There's certain criteria it needs met, and I think it's the same with financial fair play. It's there to protect clubs in a sense as well as punish them, so that they don't get back doing these heavy routes, so that they're in control a lot more of clubs' finances and what they're spending, and they're not allowing clubs to go out and spend. Like Man City went out and spent £200 million in January. I don't know how they get off with it, right? But they've obviously found a way around it to be able to go out and do that. Do you know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's not something. I'm not saying I know everything about FFP now, but I feel as if I've got a clearer idea. What did you think about it, Billy? Is that a route you think? You're the one that done the interview. Do you think it's a route that we should begin doing?
Should be, probably, mate. Yeah. I feel that the guys in charge of the 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh are probably a bit more financial savvy than David Murray, and I don't mean to insult David Murray, but they all operate on such a massively bigger scale than he did. He operated in this country where he had the ear of some top bankers, but once they were replaced or once they changed, it all kind of came crashing down, didn't it? So, no, I feel that they have got how litigious is the American law system? If they for a second felt that they were unfairly penalised for something, they'd be throwing money at it to take these the organisations to court. I know there's rules in place to stop that, but the Americans always seem to find a way around that side of things. I don't want us to go down a dark road of financial negligence that David Murray took us down. But there is a risk and reward side to this that makes sense from what Stefan was saying. And like yourself, I'm no expert on. Sorry, we're going to say something, Scotty?
I think personally you could probably see us breaking financial fair play in the short term for long term success, and then bringing our spending under control by enhancing the quality of squad on a yearly basis if everything goes according to plan.
But that's what I was going to say. You could break it for the first year, get yourself into the Champions League, and then you don't need to improve the squad again for another couple of seasons. By that point, you've had another couple of years, hopefully, of Champions League money. So there is that, short-term gamble, and then also, how did Man City get away with it? Probably because they know all these loopholes. I mean, what I never got to say in the interview, just because it was Stefan had given me half an hour and already went on nearly an hour, so I didn't want to make it last longer than it needed to, or than he'd agreed. But it was to do with now I've got a mind blank. Sorry. I'll come back to that, but I was a bit. That's annoying because last week I wanted to ask it as well, but anyway, I'll come back to me. When talking to him, though, it never occurred to me that could have been something. Because he was looking at it, going, "This makes no sense." Now we've seen a very a viral video of a Celtic blog talking about how it makes no financial sense, and maybe the guy's right after all. It doesn't make financial sense if you're going to play by the rules. Maybe if you're going to break the rules for a wee bit, it makes more financial sense because you're going to walk away with this good couple of years worth of 50, no, maybe not 50, but 30, 40 million, as Bob was saying. So that for me, that side of it makes sense that, you could, as you say, get away with it for the short term. And I think he was saying, do we not have like 3 years to balance things out as well? So maybe they can fudge things enough that it does actually make sense. But he was also saying that we're in a good position, that I think he was throwing around the figure about 30 million that we've actually got to play with in the short term anyway. So whether that's right or wrong, the accountants will know that side of it. Bob, I'll bring you back in on this as well, because I never asked you about what your opinion of whether we should go down that route as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think just as yourself and Scotty said, I think short term it's worth doing. I think we all know that what the state of the squad is like at the moment. We know we need heavy investment in the playing squad to bring in, you know, half a dozen new. I say new, just quality players that are going to really push us on to have a far better challenge in the league, and also help in Europe as well. I know that we've done pods about the Scottish side of the game in regard to as Scottish quality as Scottish do Scottish players have the quality to come into the big two. Again, it's easy to look at the other side of the city. They've been able to have that for a prolonged period of time, even over the last season. Dundee's best player, Luke McCowan, come in and obviously done well for Celtic. Being objective about it, he has. He's come in his first season. He's won a league. We can only hope for the same for Lyle Cameron coming in over the summer, and hopefully others like him. To me, yes, I would prefer. I would prefer to go down that road because I think ultimately these guys want to come in and make money off us, and the quickest way to do that is to top load the playing side of things, get us playing successful football, not even attractive football, just getting us back into winning things on a regular basis, having us in the Champions League or in Europe for successive seasons. Obviously, more so Champions League because it brings more money, brings more prestige. So yeah, I think short term it would certainly be a benefit to us. Again, I think we all share that same concern of not getting ourselves into a black hole financially again. I think that if we can be successful and keep on the right side of the money men, then I can't see it. It's not going to be as bad a thing as it has been in the past.
Scotty, what I did kind of read between the lines from Stefan's interview was that it only really does make sense if it's the Champions League money.
Well, I suppose, but there's also 18,000 people waiting on the waiting list for Ibrox, so you can do it. Right, bring money in through your stadium, as we all know. You can bring money in through building around Ibrox. You can. To me, there's more opportunities than what meets the eye, if that makes any sense, and what the 49ers could do. Now, I don't even know what they're going to do down at Leeds yet, because they've only just started to put things in place now with the Premier League and being back and all that kind of stuff. They've already put out expansion plans for Elland Road now that they're a Premier League club again. So it'll be interesting, but I think they'll just want kind of short-term success to me. That's the immediate goal. Get short-term success on the park with a long-term strategy. Get that working, and then you can start to implement stuff and look at how you're going to turn your coin back.
Well, look, Bob, we did have a game that we talked about briefly, but Easter Road, I guess, it's been kind of called a microcosm of the season because we scored a good goal. We threw away a lead. We scored another good goal. We scored two good goals and then threw away the lead, but and then got the lead again and threw it away again and ended up in a kind of draw. Neither team's really had anything to play for. The positions in the league were set by that point. But let's talk about the Raskin goal that was ruled off, because I don't think I've seen anything so egregiously wrong and not overturned by VAR.
Yeah, I don't. Again, just as you said, it's a microcosm of our season. The fact that if Raskin didn't think the ball was over the line, there's no way he would have just stopped. He would have rifled it into the roof of the net at that point. Again, the amount of things that have posts, clips, memes, gifs, whatever you want to call it, that's been going around social media since last week's game has been unbelievable. Again, it was touched on during the week on Wednesday for the Europa League final, in the Spurs goal, and how that was such a. I see a similar goal in the sense of it looked at, obviously like the cross the line, and obviously they'll get the technology to look at it in Europe and down south, but just the fact that we as a footballing nation don't have goal line technology, that we're still rely on the assistant referees and maybe VAR to a certain extent, but again VAR doesn't really, that's not the use of VAR, is for goals, clear goal scoring opportunities. So yeah, it's unbelievable that it wasn't given even on video replay. The fact that they said it wasn't conclusive, I think, is the biggest thing as well through VAR, that they couldn't find a definitive angle. I'm like, well, what are we paying you for then? What, every club in the league, not just Rangers and Celtic, but every club in the league is paying for this, and if they don't have a good angle, then again it just smacks of what John Brown said, which I'll keep to, if you know, you know. But yeah, just the fact that it just seems very interesting that the angles at certain grounds isn't good enough for VAR.
Scott, I'll come to you on it, but I'll say my piece first. I think what happened a couple of weeks ago in the Celtic game, when they got their goal ruled off for the ball appearing to look off, and I think it was wrongly ruled off because I don't think they could tell from that angle that the ball was definitely out, and that's the problem. You want definites when you're going to rule a goal out, you need definites, and I think we've suffered twice. We got the goal ruled off at Aberdeen because they didn't want to overrule a linesman, and that's fine. Maybe the ball was out, and I think they didn't want to overrule the linesman on this occasion either. And I'm playing devil's advocate with a few of these, but I think we're bearing the brunt yet again of a mistake that was that Celtic didn't benefit from. But the linesman lost, was it VAR guy lost his job after that one, and they're now too scared to do anything because Celtic made a big fuss about it.
Are we really surprised this is still going on in Scottish football? How can we, take your asking goal for example last week, right? Because that was the initial question, and just look at it. How can we have VAR in place before we've got goal line technology in place? There's your first error. Goal line technology was out before VAR, so that should have been in place years ago, before VAR was even a thing. Is it Hawkeye? I think it's a company that does a goal line technology in it. Some company called that. So there should have been a wish version of that in place in the SPFL, because it's like the referees, everything's
an integration of it at least.
Aye, exactly, 100%. Or integrate it through VAR, where we set ourselves aside by speaking to Sky, getting these certain camera angles, make it part of the deal, blah blah blah. It's basic common sense to me that yet again is lacking in Scottish football. There's so many things Scottish football could do better, i.e. bigger leagues, and take that one league away and bring, but I'm going off on a tangent now, but we're really not good at doing the basics in this country. For referees to VAR to goal line technology, the start to finish, there's the plastic pitches. I mean, come on, how amateurs are even having plastic pitches in a top European league that we're supposedly in? We've got plastic pitches. It's just a shambles from start to finish, to be honest with you, Billy. I don't really want to get into the refereeing thing too much, because I just think there's basics that need fixed everywhere else before you can even. I mean, if you want to get into referees, why they're not full time? Do you know what I mean? These guys are part time. They're making good money, good part time money, but there's so many things that could be done better. It's a rabbit hole. It really is. Why did Willie Collum get a job at the beginning of the season? Why did we not bring in these foreign guys that want to come in and totally revamp it? So when John Brown's talking about corruption, is that not corruption in a way that you're getting another mate a job at top level of Scottish football? I mean, it just stinks to high heavens, doesn't it? Really, from start to finish.
It does. I mean, if we wanted to be a serious league with serious people in charge, we could have it. It's not that we can't. We could put the money. I mean, the person at the top of this at the moment is on what, 400,000 a year with a 2-year termination deal in his contract. We could have the best people. It seems deliberate now that we have members of, say, lower league teams in charge of things, when we could have actual proper people at the top. You say conspiracy, but it seems like there's certain people like it the way it is, and until we remove these people, we're going to have the tin pot league, the bowling club mentality, isn't it? And the goal line technology. In the chat when I was watching it, I'll be like, well, the referee will hold his wrist up and show that it was over the line. Then one of the other guys in the chat, no, we don't have that here. It might even be you, Bob, actually, that said we don't have them. Like, how do we not have goal line technology?
Yeah,
I think we benefited from one in Europe this season or last season, didn't we? There was one that was ruled over the line a minute or so later. But
what I'm saying is overall, Billy, is like it's easy to criticise referees, but see when you look past that and you look at the
Yeah.
basic Scottish football, plastic pitches, wrong, no goal line technology. It's just it's so wrong from top to bottom that you'd need to scrap it and start again to have a better product, to be brutally honest with you. Look at the Sky deal as well. I mean, the whole thing just stinks, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And that came up in the interview last week as well, that we're not in line to be getting any more money from Sky either. In fact, there's a chance they actually cut us away because they don't need us anymore, and they've got enough games to, for people to subscribe for what they get. So fair enough. But yeah, the end of the season, Bob, I take it you were probably like myself last week as well, that you just wanted to see it over because you're looking forward to hopefully the next couple of weeks of signings and takeovers and new managers.
Yeah, I think it was just a relief in a way, Billy. I think we all kind of said that in chat one way or another, that as was kind of put in the, in the early part of the week on the pods, is it's just been an awful season. You go in with so much optimism, the cusp of a wave sort of thing. Some obviously some new players. Hopefully a good style of play. It just never materialised. Again, another change of manager. Obviously, this time later in the season rather than our usual October, November time frame. It happened in February when, again, by all matter of means, everything was kind of done and dusted. Might not be mathematically, but it was certainly on its way to being that way. So yeah, I mean, again, just we touched on the top of the pod, come that whistle at whatever it was, 2:00 on Sunday afternoon, you just hope that there was going to be some form of positivity coming out of the club to try and bypass the car crash that has been this season.
And Scotty, just your final thoughts on the season, mate. Just sum up in a couple of words.
Glad it's finished.
Good stuff. Look, we will touch on, because I'm not a big watcher of the women's game, Bob, but I'll touch on the game on Sunday, because Rangers were in for a title, playing Hibs at home. All they needed to do was win. I'd even said amongst ourselves, this is like a helicopter Sunday type moment. I'm quite excited putting this on. And it was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. Yeah. The Williams women team did not cover themselves in glory. A late red card as well, but yeah, crashing out of the league title and beat 1-0 at home by Hibs. Did you get a chance to watch it?
No, I didn't. But again, I was following the game, and I just feel it's obviously gutting, because the women's team has been far more successful in recent years than the men's team, which I think has probably turned a lot of fans over to watch the women's game more than in the past. We've seemed to have built a successful team, especially in the cups, and I know we're down to playing the Scottish Cup final. I don't know if it's this weekend or next weekend against Glasgow City at Hampden. So again, promote that. If you're free at the weekend and you want to go to women's game and watch a wee bit of football, then by all means get yourselves down there and support the female team. But yeah, just gutted for the team. Again, being so close, the fact that they were the highest scorers in the league. I think they scored over 120 goals, I think, over the course of the year. To be beat on the last day of the season, to lose the league in the last game of the season, similar to last year when Celtic won it, I think, on goal difference or by one point, I think it was. Again, just very disappointing for the team, because I think, again, the last couple of years they've been so close to getting there. Just couldn't get themselves over the line. Probably similar reflections to the men's team, and maybe just when the pressure was on, they've maybe just not had enough to get themselves there.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, we had a few people leave the club this week, Scotty. For me, Leon Balogun's time was up, despite me liking the big man. But I feel that if we're going to be a serious contender, we need someone as good as him, but maybe 10 years younger. On him alone, we'll talk about all the players that left, but were you wanting Leon Balogun to stay? But he obviously had quite an emotional message that he didn't get to say goodbye. That seemed a bit off.
I think it gives you more benefit having him in the club than what's the benefit of him being released, if you know what I mean. Like, we're going to have a high turnover of players this summer. If it's his fourth or fifth choice centre back, then what damage is he going to do? He's a breath of fresh air around the place. Apparently, he always speaks well to the media. The fans adore him. I didn't see any real need to release him, to be honest with you, Billy. He wouldn't be on that much in terms of wages.
Right.
In terms of when he plays, he's very good. He's old. He picks up niggling injuries, but when he plays, he does a good job. He was arguably our number one centre back this season when he played.
That's the problem, though, mate.
It's a problem. So why would you release that? Do you know what I mean? That's the bit that kind of bugs me about it. So go out and get a better level and put Leon where the whole idea was when he signed back in the first place is your fourth or fifth choice. You'll come in for cup games. You'll come in when injuries come in. Do you know what I mean? So he's doing more damage away from the club than what he is actually in a club because he's low maintenance. He's good around the place. He's going to earn these wages in other ways if he's not going to play football next season. And if we do get an injury crisis, God forbid, then he can come in and step up until his body kind of decides to chuck it. He can patch you up for a couple of matches, is what I'm saying, if needed.
Bob, I do see both sides of it. I'm not saying I disagree with Scotty. I think I just would like to have 4 players of his quality. His quality is the least, or the minimum kind of quality we have. I wouldn't have been arguing him staying around, but I do think that would be good to have a couple other players that were more available than he was.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, just as you touched on, for me, again, I say consistent. Whenever he played, he was consistent. He never really had a bad game. Over the course of the 2 spells that he's had with us, again, I mean, I remember his very first game against Aberdeen in that COVID season. When we won the league, the fact that nobody had heard of him before that, he came in, had clattered himself into a post, got again another head injury. Put himself on, put his body on the line. First game of the season, you just thought this guy just is, a Rolls Royce of a player, despite his age at that point. Obviously, Father Time catches up with us all, and yeah, obviously not as available as previous seasons this year, but again, whenever he came in, he did a good job for us. My hope, my wish, is, as you said, Billy, that we can identify and find 4 or 5 players like him that are robust, consistent, and are able to bring a level of fear to opposition teams when they come up against us, that this isn't going to be an easy day to day to play up against this defence. So yeah, in the long run, I'm hoping over the summer, if we break if we break these financial fair play rules that we're talking about, go and get a 3 or 4 top quality defenders from somewhere across the top leagues in Europe, and that's your marker for the season, I think.
Sorry, Bob.
That's
Scotty,
okay.
I think it was either a comment on a podcast or it was a tweet by Adam Thornton, and it was a picture of Morelos, Ryan Kent, and Yanis Hadji, and it was something like all these players left for free. So Hadji leaves this week, and I'm particularly annoyed that again we never received anything from him, because he should have been the absolute standard of we buy a player like him and sell him for profit, and yet again he's walked out the door with no transfer fee. What do you make of that?
To be fair, I think we tried at the beginning of the season. I think the club and Phil Clement done everything they could to get rid of him, and nobody wanted him.
Right.
So there's only so much you can do in that sense. In terms of Hadji, I've got similar feelings to what I had around Todd Cantwell leaving. Well, no, I didn't like TikTok Todd towards the end because he just annoyed the living daylights out of me. And Hadji started to kind of do that. There was a clamour to get him back in mid-season. We got him back in, he had an impact. And then he just kind of faded away after it, Billy. He's not done anything to warrant us getting a transfer fee for him, because he's not been good enough. He went to Alaves wasn't good enough. It's a better league, a better football. He's got more time in the ball. He failed. He came back, done alright. He showed spots in that, but I'm happy he's away, because he wasn't worth the outlay and the drama that's run about his dad, and just, I don't know. Hadji said one thing in a presser and his agents were saying another thing in the newspaper. Do you know what I mean? So I would rather just cut a cord, take a hit and be done with it. But I get where you're coming from. We're saying that once too often, aren't we?
And Bob, there definitely was a bit of I guess, press round him. But I remember being, I don't know if it was on holiday in Gran Canaria or something, and I picked up a can of Pepsi and had juice on it. And I was like, wow, we've got a player on a can of juice. It's worldwide. And yeah, I was quite pleased that he played for us. But as Scotty was saying, he never really justified that level of interest there is in him. He's not his dad. And I'm not saying he's trading on his dad's name, but he just wasn't good enough to really be constantly first team. Other than the 55 season, he really struggled to be a regular starter.
Yeah, again, I think it just comes back overall, Billy, to, as you said, just mismanagement from the top. These quality players that we've had over the last 4 or 5 years that have been brought in for decent money. We all know what Kent was brought in for. Yanis Hadji was 2 or 3 million, I think, at the time. To be able to let him run down his contract and leave for free it's a kick in the teeth. Again, it just goes to show how poorly we've been run over the last few years. From a financial point of view, yes, it's gotten that he's leaving. I think, as you said, he was a solid enough player. He obviously gave us a few, more than a few good memories to remember him by, not least the Braga game. But yeah, we really need, and again, we've talked about this to death, both on and off pods, about the player trading model. The fact we're having to start from scratch yet again this summer with potential new ownership. It can be deflating. But yeah, I mean, I wish him all the best. I mean, he's certainly come back, and he played his part over the course of the latter part of this season once the contractual side of things had been addressed between himself and the club. And I'm sure he'll be welcome back at Ibrox, whether it's playing for another team, an ambassador role in the future. He certainly has a club at heart. And again, similar to Balogun, he put his body on the line for us on more than one occasion. It's just disappointing to see him leave for no, I say no profit, but for no money at all.
Yeah. I'll come to you. I'll stay with you, Bob, because I've let Scotty have his opinion on the other two players. But Tom Lawrence also leaves us. There was some people thinking he might stay with Barry playing him towards the end of the season. I wasn't one of them. I wish him all the best, but he never really did it for us. He had that bad injury for a season. He goes with my best wishes, but again, on to bigger and better for us, hopefully. What was your opinion on Lawrence leaving?
Yeah, same. I think when we were first touted and bringing him in, that kind of first, I say, full year under Gio, really exciting player. Had seen him down south for Derby and the like, in the Championship and in the Premier League, and he came across as a very good player at that point. Again, just very unfortunate with injuries, which just seems to be us as a team, as a club at the moment. Over the last few years, that we can't get away from having players on the treatment table. I think when he came back, he just didn't have the same energy, maybe not attitude. I mean, his attitude, I think, has always been relatively good on the park. But yeah, just couldn't give us what we were looking for. Post that injury, he kept getting niggles, and again, strange for me. I know we touched on it last week and a couple of weeks before that. Given game time to the likes of Lawrence at the end of the season it's futile knowing that he's going. Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I certainly would have liked that time that he had on the park to be used by one of the youth players, whether it be Rice or Curtis or someone else that was emerging from the youth team. But yeah, again, goes with my best wishes. He scored a good goal against PSV to help get us through to Champions League in that first year. But other than that, maybe not a lot of other ones spring to mind. So yeah, I hope he goes and gets probably a decent club down south.
I don't want to speak for you, Scotty, but I'm assuming you weren't wanting to have Lawrence stay on any longer than this season.
No, definitely not. He's offered next to nothing for he signed. He's been a big wage.
That's the main thing, the wage, isn't it?
James Tavernier's had more use this season, earned his money better than what Tom Lawrence did. And that's a whole...
Careful, Curry is in the comments, mate.
You could do a whole pod on that if you wanted to, but Tom Lawrence, I'm happy he's away, but it's... Again, injuries. just ruined his time. I think he would have been a different player under Steven Gerrard, because Gerrard would have had him fit, and I think that's probably been the biggest problem we've had.
Two players we apparently will be returning to, Scotty, is Kieran Dowell and Ben Davies. I didn't want to hear that news. I heard they were getting on pretty well down there. I'm assuming, though, this might just be a kind of technicality of the contracts running out, and they more than likely will stay down in England. What do you think of them both?
Aye, time up. Both need to go. Not suited to Scottish football, not suited to Rangers. Played well in the loan spell. They'll definitely get interest, I would imagine, Billy.
Same, Bob, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think just as pretty much what Scotty said. I think probably just not having the pressure of being in a very, a two-team league up here. Just the pressure of playing for Rangers is something that you either get it, you don't. I just don't think Dowell or Davies will be remembered fondly by the fans. Again, coming in, Dowell serial injury list, from previous spells in Norwich and the like. The fact that he couldn't get into the team, he's played relatively well for Birmingham. So again, hopeful that gets us maybe some money back on trying to get them out the door. Same with Ben Davies. I think probably better for both of them that they move on, and we as a club, as we've said, as we've touched on, kind of look forward to this fresh investment with hopefully a number of high quality, low earning players coming in the door.
Good stuff. Well, excuse me, guys. Well, look, unless I've missed any news wise, I was going to finish off on what we're expecting or what we're looking forward to this week. I guess we said it last week, Bob, but hoping to have the takeover announced and hoping to have the manager announced. What I was worried about is some of the kind of comments coming out, and nobody knows if they're true or not, is not to really expect anything until June. Now, June's still a week on Sunday away, so it could be that nothing happens over this next week. Are we as fans maybe just a wee bit too impatient because of the way this season's went, Bob, that we just want it announced right now? I mean, maybe that's an easy question to answer, but are we maybe right in feeling that some good news needs to come out?
Yeah, I think so. I think just as a fan base, Billy, as we've touched on over the course of the pod today, I think the last few years have not been kind to us. Since 55, yes, we've won the two cups since then, but again, no prolonged success, or silverware over the last 3 or 4 years. We as a fan base expect a lot from our club and our players, and I think I would be hopeful that there's something given to us this week. Any small chink of information would be, I think, greatly received by the fan base. So yeah, I just think we are right to expect it because of the way we are as a fan and as a club. So yeah, hopeful. I remain optimistic that we can get this done. Again, the fact that we have the timeline for mid-June, as was kind of indicated by Dave King in his interview a few weeks ago. If we keep to that, then you're talking maybe 3 weeks away, give or take, if everything stays on track, maybe sooner. And again, as you touched on, the sooner the better.
And Scotty, I guess you'll be like myself, always checking Twitter for these kind of any updates and anything. It seems to be just total conjecture at the moment. People throwing things up. There's newspapers putting up items and then taking it down 5 minutes later because they've got it wrong already. Are you getting fed up with this?
No, I love every minute, Billy. I'm right on a hype train. Right on a hype train. It needs announced soon. It needs announced ASAP because we've got players are back in the 23rd of June. I think Raskin said in an interview.
Yeah.
There's still internationals that have to come probably next week and the following week. We need to get somebody in the building. To me, all the timing of it is pointing towards Ancelotti looking like it because he's going to Brazil with his dad and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see, but I hope I'm not waiting on 1 or 2 weeks on a manager because time is of the essence. I'm starting to get a wee bit anxious about it now, Billy. We need somebody in place and then we can start getting signings in the door. The takeover won't be announced until June, we know that, but the takeover's nearly done, so there's nothing stopping us. We've got the structure in place to appoint a manager, so go and appoint a manager.
Well, let me put you on the spot. Obviously, we're continuing all through the summer. We'll be looking forward to the transfer window. You got any kind of special topics in mind for the next week or so that we're going to talk about on the pods?
I've been trying to kind of, like, we've done the deep dive into Gerrard the other night. I'm trying to do things as it comes up. I'm looking at, it's hard to, you could do that, like, profile pods on, like, we've got a Dessers debate coming up as to whether he's any good or whether he should stay or go and all this kind of stuff. You could look at Diamande again, you could look at Raskin, what you do with him. You could do all these as kind of separate pods, but I think the need for everybody is the manager situation just now. So I feel as if we've hit the takeover really well with Mark Miyoko, your brilliant interview with what was his name again? Sebastian, no?
Stefan,
your brilliant interview on that. We've hit the managerial thing hard this week along with all the interviews, which I hope, I know Rangers watch every podcast, so I'm hoping that the interviews gave them a wee bit of insight into some of the candidates as well, in terms of how they're viewed by experts of former clubs that they've been at, or clubs they're at now. So we're just kind of trying to stay active, Billy, and be hot on the press for the topic that is at hand, if that makes any sense. There's loads of stuff we can go into in terms of the squad. I know we've got a squad review coming next week, and Doug does that, so he'll have something up his sleeve in terms of that. We've got the Dessers debate. There's loads of stuff coming up, but I think it's looking at the here and now, because we've never, this time last year it was easy enough to look at do John Sterling and do a tribute pod, or, there was already a structure and stuff at place at the club, but the club's so open just now with all the changes that are happening that I think we need to stay in this world just now instead of planning. I don't think we can plan in ahead, unfortunately, but I just think we go by what's the flavour of the day, because that's what everybody's wanting to speak about.
Also, if I can plug my chat with Kevin Thompson, which he also gave us a kind of background in what's been going on at the club as well. So if you're interested to see what's been happening behind the scenes, that's a good interview with Kev as well, just on our YouTube page. Bob, have I missed any news for this week?
No, I think obviously the loan players going back, Vaslav and the long forgotten Rafael Fernandez. I thought I'd give him a shout out since he never got much game time when he came in January. So yeah, I mean,
Casemiro as well, is that right? Have I got that wrong?
Casemiro as well, going back. For the moment anyway, who knows if the new manager may prefer to follow that one up, same with Czerny. But yeah, again, go with our best wishes. Fernandez came in probably at the wrong time, too young, not enough experience. Czerny obviously did what he did over the course of the year. As we kept saying over the last couple of years, don't fall in love with a loan player. But with this new investment coming, who knows what the future brings coming towards the start of next year.
Scott, I'm gonna talk about Czerny for a second. Sorry, I didn't fall in love with him, and he was just too inconsistent. I mean, he pulled off some great things, but he was just too inconsistent for me. I wouldn't want us spending that amount of money on him.
Nah, definitely not. Highlight Czerny's Rangers career was his antics at Parkhead. For me, that was the best thing he'd done. It was the best thing he'd done the whole year he was here. Decent enough player, but I am pretty much
too predictable for me for what he does, and he pulled off some great goals. But
complete agreement with you.
Fair enough. Okay, well, Scotty, mate, thanks for joining us today on the news show.
No bother. Thank you for having me, lads.
No worries, mate. And Bob, thanks again for coming along this week. And you back next week, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully this time next week we'll get some more news to talk about, or news from the club coming out. Probably just before we cut things out. I don't know if maybe the way to steal your thunder, but yeah, just give a shout out to Off to the Match I Go, the sponsors. You can see from the bottom, we've got the Journal 10 discount for 10%. And I'll let you hopefully segue into some positive news for the Journal before we sign off.
Thanks for setting all up for me, Bob, as well. Yeah, guys, last night I've been keeping an eye on the figures myself, and I was able to put on a group chat 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, Scotty. Look, congratulations to you, because you're the kind of driving force behind us all here. So I wanted to say thank you very much for doing all the stuff you do. But it's onwards and upwards for us. It's just it's another one of these milestones and the target to be hopefully an important voice for the Rangers fans.
Aye, definitely. Thanks to everybody for their support. And just says, I know I'm doing an awful lot of stuff in the background these days. I'm not really on the pods as much as I would like to. So you guys do all the hard work. So we're hoping the Copping Report's going to get up and running again this summer, because there's not really been much to speak about in the Copping Report the last kind of couple of months, because football's been getting played. There's not really been many players linked. So me and Mitch will sit down and get a chat about linked players, where we could go looking for players, where we're maybe even going to start looking into some backroom stuff, depending who comes in, what they're going to do, so we can maybe do a wee episode on them, where they've been, what type of coach they are, all that type of stuff. So in the tactics pod, I think Dave's working away in the background of how to beat a low block, and we're going to do a pod on that, because I think if there's anything more relevant to where Rangers are just now, it's how to beat a low block, and how it used to be easy for us and how it isn't anymore. So there's an awful lot of things coming up on the channel. But
now, we
also
also
for the help and support.
No, and we also thank you everyone for your support and subscribing as well. And again, please tell your friends about us. And if you do subscribe, it should pop up on your Twitter or your YouTube. Scotty, there was a competition for up to when we got to 3,000 users, but there was a signed picture and also a strip available. Now, is that competition still running, or was that closed now?
Competition's still running. We've not had as many entries as I want, and the gifts are that good that I'm going to be a part of it, but I'm holding it back until I feel as if people are starting to enter it, because there's a free home top up for grabs, and there's a signed picture with probably two of the greatest Rangers that have won as our only ever European final. So I think it needs a wee bit more acknowledgement before I'm willing to release it, if that makes any sense. But it's on head on over and see it and enter. Please enter.
Well, yeah, you'll get the full details, but it basically comes down to following Off to the Match I Go on Facebook, following us on Twitter, and just taking a wee screenshot and shoving it in that competition page. So, yeah, head over there to do that, guys. It is a good prize. Well, it's a great prize, mate. But also you chucked in last week the new home top as well as one of the prizes. So that's fantastic. Look, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Every night is the Rangers Journal night, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.